Got Dudley with us, Dudley Dawson from Hogville. He told me that practice, the presser was complete. I don't know. Did you hear was there a fire alarm going that you heard throughout some of the pressers? I was reading about that, Dudley. Could you hear what Eric Mateos was saying?
Yeah. What's interesting is you had the Goodyear blimp and John Calipari showing up at practice today, so that's pretty interesting.
Wow. So what was the scene with Cal? Was he just kind of hanging out watching? Was he talking with Coach? What's Cal doing?
Yeah, there's several pictures there. I think they share a pretty good relationship. I think Coach Cal does with most coaches around here. You know, he's come in and really, I think over the last year, certainly embodied and ingratiated himself to the other coaches, and I think that's pretty good indication from most coaches around here these days. It hadn't always been the case, but it is these days.
I just wonder how often he was photographed with Mark Stoops at Kentucky, because in the last few years there, I think they had a little bit of a what kind of a school are we kind of a thing going on there. So what can you tell us what Coach Mateos had to say, or maybe anything you've seen from this group of offensive linemen so far?
Well, first of all, they are a lot bigger, and I don't think I'm breaking any scoops there, but when you see them in person, when you get offensive linemen who were 295 that are 320, you've got some that are 380. You've got the second biggest shack in the world, they say, in the transfer from Oregon. It just looks more like an SEC line. Coach Pittman has been adamant about that. They came in and wanted to get a different type of offensive lineman, but it took a while how do we want to say this? It took a while to rework the Chad Morris experiment. And I think they are now where they need to be size-wise. He also feels like they're pretty versatile, and feels like he's got some guys that can move around. Headlined by a guy who's probably going to be taken pretty high in the draft in Francisco Carmona.
What are you seeing on the right side? It seems I don't know if anything was up with Caden Kittler, but I didn't see him on somebody's report today, Trey's report on what the depth chart looked like. But I've read he's been the guy that's been starting at center. We know Carmona's left guard, and that there's Robinson at left tackle. Who do you see kind of ahead in terms of right guard, right tackle? And is there enough behind them in terms of depth?
I really couldn't say for sure on that right side. I mean, obviously you've got several candidates there. I think people have got 9 guys, rotating in there. So the right side is something that, Coach Pittman has talked about. He's got to get the right 5 there. And you want to have 7 ready to play, at any time. And the versatility is there, but the transfers are going to have to come in and play in this day and age in college football, or in any other sport really in college right now. You're going to have a big time turnover, and they certainly did on the offensive line this year. Outside really of Marion Harris, who's going to get some time over there, obviously, and Carmona.
Tell me a little bit about this running back, Mike Washington. Because I've never seen the kid play. He's going to be RB1?
I still feel like Braylon will probably be RB1, but Mike Washington and they like Cam Settles too. They're trying to find the freshman from Little Rock Parkview. They're trying to find a role for him. We'll see if that develops. He certainly has a great amount of speed and elusiveness. Been watching him, I think, since the 9th grade. He's just one of those playmakers you got to get out on the field, somehow, just like Antonio Jordan. As he learns the playbook, he'll just keep getting better. But Mike Washington has certainly been impressive. But if I was betting, I'd go Braylon goes out as RB1.
Does this team have more depth? I think that's the word that's thrown around more than anything, because. You had 2 receivers that one of them probably should have had the ball a little bit more often last year, but it wasn't a very deep group at receiver. It didn't feel like it. Same with tight end. Then you had guys that left the program in the middle of the season, or were kicked off the team. Offensive line, you could feel a lack of depth over the last couple of years. Do you think they have the numbers that they need?
I think they're getting closer. One of the things I've always tried to convey to fans and all that is 1-22 Arkansas wasn't where it needed to be. Hasn't been where it needed to be these last few years. 23 to 44, they're kind of, I think they've improved that. 1-85, 84, I think maybe was what they have on scholarship now. They're just not where you need to be an upper-level SEC program. But I do think, and going back to what I was saying earlier, that this looks and feels like more of an SEC football team. And so I do think, to answer your question in a long-winded way, I do think they have far more depth than they've had. And I want to call it playable depth. That they feel confident they can send out to play, because you can have 85 players, but not everybody, you're not going to play everybody because they're just not ready.
Dudley, we've been talking a little bit about this number 1, number 2 matchup. Texas traveling to Ohio State to, game week 1. What's the last, number 1, number 2 matchup you remember, if you do remember one, to start a season? And then which one of these teams, as far as Texas or Ohio State, which one does the loss hurt more? I know it would end up being a good loss, and I think if either one of those teams get to 10-2, they're in the playoffs. Who do you see that loss hurting more as the season goes on, though?
Well, first of all, I'm a big fan of these type matchups early in the season, and I think it kind of helps you focus a little bit. If you do lose that game, you still have plenty of time to be one of the 12 teams in the playoff. I think both of those teams, have a great shot at being in there. But I do think that Ohio State needs it more. If you're at home and you got to take care of your business, and you announced yourself as a great football team last year, can you keep that up? Texas, I think, will go on and have a really good season. Yes, they're in a tough conference. We can go here, back and forth about which one's 1 and which one's 2 in terms of the conference strength. But I do think it's more important for Ohio State to win. I do think Texas, as Arch comes along, and I'm not ready to anoint him the greatest quarterback ever, but I do think as he gets more playing time, that he's going to be, a credit to that lineage that the Mannings have.
Well, what does that game mean in terms of the rest of the season for both leagues? Because these are the two 800-pound gorillas, Dudley, and they've spent basically since the last football season ended, or really when the rankings came out from the committee last November, arguing about whose schedule is tougher and which league is better and which league is deeper and all of that. You got other leagues trying to get involved in it, but we know that it's all between these two, and these are the two programs picked to win their leagues. Yeah, So what does that game have more meaning for the Big Ten, the SEC, or equal?
I think it's equal, but I do think the narrative will be set as soon as one team wins that ball game. The one that did, the conference, will shout out, "It's the best." There's no doubt whatsoever, regardless of what happens the rest of the year, because best on best. But I do think that I think as you look over things, in Penn State, I think is going to be a pretty good football team this year. I'm anxious to see the top of the SEC, the top of the Big Ten, how it's going to play itself out. But the narrative is going to be set on Saturday, August 30th, my 62nd birthday, when I think there are 5 really great games that me and my grandson, who will be visiting, will be sitting around watching.
Dudley, you got the same birthday as my mother, Paula J. So, yeah, that'd be cool. The other one I want to ask you about is the matchup of the Tigers, LSU and Clemson. Same kind of question. Which way do you see that one going? And LSU struggles. It seems like what is it? 3 games in three season openers in a row. They took an L, and then Dabo, just kind of fighting the man as far as the portal, and then kind of is treading. And now is Clemson back?
We're going to find out, aren't we? Right, that first game, and need another one of these first games where you've got 2 great programs, but 2 programs that kind of have, I don't want to say mired, but have not established themselves as one of the best last year, really the last couple of years. I do think that that Dabo and his program, they're getting it done without the portal. I truly wish he would come on board with that. I do think, while it may not be the greatest thing ever, I do think it's a way to make your team better. And and obviously everybody else is doing that around the country, and he's disdaining it and not wanting to do it. But LSU, I think that's a very important game for them. Obviously got a great quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier, who I think is going to be, if not the best, one of the best in the league for sure. But you've got that build-up of fans down there who are getting a little tired of Brian Kelly, even though he's lost the Southern accent now.
He never really had one anyway.
But I like his dance moves. He moves like Jagger.
Oh, yeah.
Jagger with one leg. Have you seen any SEC football on Netflix, Dudley? Because I watched the first episode, and like 5 minutes into it, Brian Kelly's dropping like 40 F-bombs at a practice. And it's like, I'm no prude or anything, and off the air, I mean, I'll speak just like anybody else. But that, the cameras are there, and I don't know if it comes off or anything, but I don't know if Coach Pittman be dropping the 50 F-bombs. Not like the players care too much, I guess.
Yeah, I know Coach Pittman knows the word. I've heard him use it, but he certainly didn't. As you mentioned, Brian Kelly, I think, was playing a part. He wants to be known as a hard guy, a hard coach. This is how we do things down here. Whether it's their songs they play and all that. I do think that was a little bit for the show, but I think he's trying to play. This is the character he's trying to play now. I'm Nick Saban.
I'm coming around a little bit on Dabo, and I've always been a little resistant, not to the idea of him not being a good coach, because his success speaks for itself, but just being a little, I don't know, just comes off corny sometimes. But I really do appreciate somebody that tries to stick to his guns until he now realizes I do have to change a little, and he has changed a little. Clemson's brought a few players in, but they still, have a very specific culture that obviously works there. They're back maybe to a place where they can compete for a national championship. I mean, they've signed a 15-year deal with Notre Dame. They knew they were going to get Notre Dame like every 3 or 4 years, but I mean, they play Carolina every year. I mean, that's an SEC team, and they're going to play Notre Dame every year, and they're playing LSU this year. I mean, I can appreciate a guy who's going to schedule like that in today's day and age. But in the ACC, you may have to. So that makes that game maybe the most important game of the year for the ACC, LSU and Clemson.
Yeah, because they don't have very many other spots that they can elevate themselves as a conference in both fans' eyes and in the national media eyes and obviously the playoff committee's eyes. That's a big game for Clemson. Yeah, I agree with you that Dabo is a great coach. He's proven it over the years. He can be a little distant even at times and wants to do things his own way, but most successful coaches do their things their own way and get by whether the media loves it or not. I do think that, it seems like it always comes down with Dabo and Clemson to how their quarterback's going to play, and that's probably going to be the same this year.